have to go back to the 70s. I was studying Shotokan karate. Well, my instructor's instructor had studied under George Mattson. So that was Weichi. What does Weichi have to do with Shotokan? Doesn't look at all like. However, Weichi had something that's called Kyu and Dan Kumite, which basically took kata and did preset bunkai to them, preset analyses of the movement, and they demonstrate them so that you do this attack, I'll do this defense. Now we can see what this kata means. Okay, all right, great. Now, during this time, the only person of note who was doing kata analysis was Seiyu Oyata, now deceased. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm a Shodan now, and I'm going, I got to get in contact with Oyata. I got to compare notes. Well, I contacted him, but it's like he's not going to compare notes with the Shodan, right? So I said to myself, okay, I get that. No harm, no foul. I need to go about and analyze this myself so that every kata I know, and I had to know 10 for Shodan, and I want to know an application for every movement of every kata, at least one application. So if it's a down block, I can be as simple as, you punch me in the stomach, I will block you. Or it could be, you kick me in the groin, I will block you. But then it began to say, why is it that there are so many down blocks, let's say, in hand one? Why are repeating the same move? If you do a left and a right and a left and a right, why do you have to do a left and a right, a left and a right, and a left and a right? You know, it just, this makes no sense. Are they trying to tell us something? One day in Harvard Square, I'm going through a used bookstore. And I see this book, and I reference it in the text, called How Does a Poem Mean? And I did a double take. What do you mean, how does a poem mean? And I began to understand. It's like, it's not about what it means. It's how does it go about getting information to you? So a poem can be literal and make you feel a certain way because it states a literal thing. Or it can be, well, like we talked about T.S. Eliot earlier, it can reference some obscure text. Now it's another layer of meaning, okay? Or it can refer to itself, or it can have a double entendre, okay? Does a down block have to be a down block? I said to myself, well, no, I could use it as a strike. Well, wait a minute, what about the preparation for it? Well, that clearly could be a strike. Some people prep like this, but I prep like this. Well, if that's a strike, this has got to be a block. Oh yeah, that's like an outside forearm block. So it opened my mind. So I started analyzing kata this way. And when I started writing the book, I said, okay, I'm going to subtitle it, How Does a Kata Mean? Because it's not about what a kata means. This is exactly what the Kyu and Dan Kumite of Weichi was doing. They're saying, this is what this kata means. And I said, no. Yeah, I'm sure it means that. But it could mean other things. You have even taught in a Weichi camp where you show them applications that they didn't know from the kata they did know. Right? And I've done the same thing. Not in the camp, but I've done in a Weichi school. And this is not to dump on Weichi. This was all karate systems. I once was, there was a sandan in, I think it was a Shito offshoot. It was at my apartment one time, oh God, how, in the early 80s maybe? And he was talking to me about kata. And I said, well, you know, every movement has a meaning. He said, what are you talking about? It's an exercise. I said, no, every movement has a meaning. Well, let's talk about your theory of every movement. And my theory of every movement has a meaning. Why would you do the kata?
Right.
If it didn't have some meaning? Even if your idea is that it's just exercise. Well, it's got to have an exercise benefit.
Right.
Right?
And that's what I think one of the things I really benefited for me when I read the book, and from your instruction even before the book, I think it references this, how does a kata mean? Because I think the book, instead of, like a lot of books, martial arts books, can get even though the information might be great, they're so ponderous with this move means this move means this. And you instead here give almost like a toolkit for analyzing any form, regardless of what your system is.
Exactly right.
And there's some great examples and your investigation and everything, but what I think for me is one of the jewels of the book are these 10, I don't know if they're rules, but 10
guidelines.
Guidelines, yeah, that's a better word
Let's
for
dig
it.
them out.
Yeah, so.
Page right now. Yeah, the 10 tips are on the 114, and it has to do with you could add a prefix, you could add a suffix. This, by the way, was influenced by Ed Parker. Now, Ed Parker, I never studied with Ed Parker. He studied with me. No, I have taken a couple of classes with Ed Parker, but I'm by no means an American Kempo or Parker Kempo stylist. But when I read his books, I realized that he's saying what I had already written down in the draft of this. So his mind was working in the same way.
Yeah.
So he could say you could add a prefix, you can add a suffix, you could put an insert in the middle. You can rearrange the order of the components. You can alter the weapon or the target. That was huge to me because it's like we always in class were doing defense against a face-high lunge punch. In Shotokan, you still have this habit. This is the ubiquitous attack.
Yeah.
And nobody in the street attacks like that.
Correct.
Okay, but you did all your defenses against that. Well, if you do all your defenses against that, it's kind of silly to have 10 or 20 kata because
Yeah.
you don't need the other applications of the kata.
Right.
So there's got to be other attacks. Years ago, many years ago, I was in Sacramento, California. I was visiting Bruce Jutnick's gathering, and he decided that we should do a video together. And so we did a video. I forgot what we called it, Unlimited Martial Arts or something like that. He never came out with it. He never published it. But we spent, I think I spent half an hour to 45 minutes, and he did the same, only on an upper block application. That's all we did. Okay? So to me, it was like, there's so much richness in this. And in fact, there's other guys who have, well, now a lot of people are doing application of kata.
Sure.
And I don't want to say that I'm the first guy to do it, because obviously Seiyo Oyata was before me, and the Okinawans were before him.
Right.
But when you brought karate to America, people were more interested in sport than they were the traditional art or what it was for self-defense, or that method of learning. You know? Well,
it's a great way, if you want not to divert back to history, but it's also a great way of hiding things out in the open. Right? It expands more with some of these about the negative portion of the movement, or that you can combine things in different orders, and then you can really understand what they say about multiple years on one kata.
Yeah,
you know?
Really can.
Yeah.
And this is just, I wanted to have a succinct number of things that you could grab and say, if I never read this book, maybe this will help me a great deal.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean you shouldn't read the book.
Right, of course.
And I also go over in the video set. There's a 3 video set by the same name. This is, God, I don't know when I did it, 1990 something. Here's the problem. Why did I have the rules if I want to have an open interpretation of kata? Because I felt I had students who wanted to get an application in that kata so badly that they'd contort the kata.
Right.
Well, now you're not learning from the kata. Now you're laying your previous martial arts training on the kata, which, okay, fine. But I'd rather have you learn from the kata because that's broadening your perspective. And I admit that there's extremes in this, okay? For example, I know 80-something kata. Well, most people don't know 80-something kata. I've gone to an extreme. I like the idea of having to learn some other system's kata, probably not doing it as well as they can do it, to force my body to be in those shapes, but also to see variations of application that I wouldn't have seen in a smaller set of kata.
Sure.
The other extreme, I have a friend who is convinced that he can get everything out of knife hunch. I mean, it's like, you got to learn a few more kata.
Right, yeah.
Oh no, I'll get everything on a knife hunch. Well, to me, the danger of that is you're going to put your interpretation into the kata rather than draw out from the kata.
Sure.
And that's why I had the rules. So you get the rules, you follow the rules, but you don't want to be, rules are meant to get you from here to there. And I use this analogy all the time. I'll make it very simple. Let's say your rules are a reading list, and it's the reading list you need to have for 4 years of college to get a degree in this discipline, whatever it is. For me, it was English and American literature. But once you graduate school, you don't take the reading list with you except mentally. You don't go, well, I have to solve this problem. I'm going to go to my library and find the solution on page 134 of text 47B. No, it's got to work in here. So yes, I want the rules to be there to limit you, but I also want you to expand. I want you to be able to go beyond the kata, just the way they do with poetry. Back to the original subject. And again, the analysis I always use is Shakespeare. So if you study Shakespeare, you'll get a meaning out of the kata. I should say Hamlet, your favorite play. So, now, how many dissertations, doctorate dissertations, in English literature have been written on the subject of Hamlet?
Probably a lot.
Probably more than 7, right?
Yeah.
So we're talking about hundreds of thousands of dissertations.
Right.
Now let's just say that the overlap is 50%. So if it's 100,000 dissertations, now it's 50,000 dissertations. You got 50,000 ways of looking at Hamlet.
Right.
Now, did Shakespeare sit down and go, 4,997th interpretation? No. He made it rich enough so that you could read into it. I think that's what a kata is like, because we can't prove that this was a block and this was an arm break, but does it work?
Yeah.
That's all we care about.
And that's what I like in here, where you talk about not only having the kata teach you so you don't fall into that trap of changing it, but that the essence of it has to work. It can't be so...
Ultimately, when we do martial arts, and so much of this comes from my past, and now I think people are better at it, but so much of martial arts it works because we have been handed it down, and so it must have worked. Well, they go on the street and it doesn't work. So what do? They go into sport to prove that it works.
Right.
Well, then they have to limit what they do what they would have done on the street. So it didn't prove what works on the street. They prove. So now that grades to full contact karate, and that grades up to MMA. Okay. Well, they're still not working on the street. They're conditioned athletes wearing next to nothing in a octagon or a ring. So what did you prove worked on the street?
Right.
You left working on the street to become an athlete. Now, traditional martial arts is always going to be tenuous. The judgment is always going to be tenuous because ethically you can't do it. But that's why you have to get into these niceties, and that's why you have to always make sure it works to the extent that you can test it.